They get sick often. High fevers, coughs, runny noses. We do our best to feed them, but it's hard with so little.
Refugees are malnourished, and it's especially bad for kids under 5 and pregnant women. It's simple. They don't have enough to eat.
The conflict sparked by the military coup has disrupted food production and transportation and devastated the economy. This means that many of the 3 million people displaced by the conflict are now facing malnutrition. Hello and welcome to Daw Win, a weekly podcast about human rights stories from Myanmar. It's brought to you by Fondation Hirondelle. This episode is produced by a Daw Win journalist. Names and voices may have been changed to protect contributors.
I always put my mom first. If we have fish, I'll pick out a good piece for her. I try to buy meat and fish when I can, just for her. For myself, I make do with whatever I can find. Watercress, rosella leaves, whatever's available. She's old, so I want her to have something decent to eat. But it's not every day, only when I can manage it.
Daw Moe, her 80-year-old mother, and her husband and daughter have been living in a camp for internally displaced people, or IDPs, for almost 2 years. There are about 200 people in this camp and only 4 toilets. The camp is in a resistance-controlled area between Bago region and Kayin state. The resistance provides small rations of rice, noodles and dried fish, but otherwise the IDPs get no outside support. Daw Moe and her family used to live in a 2-storey brick and wood house in their village, and they traded goods for a living. But in early 2023, their house was burned down by Myanmar military forces, and they had to flee from fighting. Now they're living in a small bamboo hut. For 3 months a year, during fishing season, they can get work at a nearby pond for about 7,000 kyat a day. That's less than $2. The rest of the year, they have to borrow money and forage for vegetables. This means they can't feed Daw Moe's elderly mother well. She often falls ill and suffers from diarrhea.
In the past year and a half, my mom has fallen sick 4, 5, maybe 6 times. With the way things are here with the food situation, her health just isn't holding up. Whenever she gets sick, it can last 4 days to a week. She's weak, can't eat properly. And this isn't home for us. I think for an elderly person, it's hard to feel comfortable in a place that's not their own.
Saya Chin is a doctor as well as a member of a revolutionary force. He treats displaced people in Kayin and Bago camps. He says food and nutrition are severely lacking in the camps he visits.
The rations aren't enough. There are many things that they need. They give some rice and food, but it's always just a little. Everyone tries to make it work. At the IDP camps, I saw people sharing whatever they had: chili, fish paste, anything to get by.
According to the World Food Programme, 13 million out of 50 million people in Myanmar lack enough food. Among them, displaced people from conflict zones face the most severe shortages following the 2021 coup. The National Unity Government, or NUG, has acknowledged nutritional deficiencies among IDPs, although data is still being collected, so the exact number is not known. Dr. Victory, spokesperson for the NUG's Health Ministry Nutritional Development Department, says children and pregnant women are most affected by malnutrition.
Refugees are malnourished, and it's especially bad for kids under 5 and pregnant women. It's simple. They don't have enough to eat. Added to that, there are diseases going around, and it just makes the malnutrition worse. They're in these camps because of the SAC's violence, having to leave their hometowns, and they do not have access to nutritious food here or even clean water, so the diseases spread.
In Kayin region, Daw Win's 7-month-old grandson is one of these at-risk children. She and her daughter and the baby, as well as 2 sons, have been displaced for more than 2 years. Their village was torched by the military. Like most IDPs, they struggle to get by, with just occasional help from local donors. Her sons manage to get odd jobs about 10 days a month. Their daily earnings then are around 10,000 chat, that's a little over $2. That's barely enough to survive with rising commodity prices.
It's not enough. So we're just trying to stretch what we have. We get by with whatever people offer us. My grandchild is 7 months old now. My daughter breastfeeds him, and sometimes we mix rice with a bit of oil and salt. We just can't afford the formula. It costs 700 or 800 chat.
The family is living in a camp of around 100 people, about 16 kilometers from their home, sleeping under a palm leaf and bamboo shelter. The lack of nutritious food causes the camp children, including Daw Win's grandson, to become frequently ill.
They get sick often. High fevers, coughs, runny noses. We do our best to feed them, but it's hard with so little. What can we do? We cannot afford it. Of course I want to give my grandchild the food he needs. Another 2 grandchildren who live nearby can't even go to school. It all depends on whether we have enough to eat. On days we don't, they just stay home. They're worse off. They survive on fish paste and whatever we have.
There are many camps in resistance-controlled areas which are hard for aid groups to reach, particularly in the dry zone and in places far from the border. Conflict has disrupted farming and made transportation of food more difficult. But the military regime has also made it harder for support to reach these IDPs. Dr. Victory says the NUG doesn't get the kind of food aid that it used to.
We used to get these nutritious food packages, let's call it healing food, thanks to UNICEF. But now, we're not receiving them anymore. Even if UNICEF buys them, they don't make it to the children and civilians who need them. The SAC has tightened restrictions on NGOs, blocking food and nutrition supplies that they used to allow. If this keeps up, children's lives are at serious risk.
Indeed, the UN and international organisations are unable to reach many parts of the country either because of access or security issues. Earlier this year, a UN OCHA official estimated that over 18 million people in Myanmar would need humanitarian assistance, but the UN had only reached just over 3 million the previous year. Most of the aid being provided to displaced people is from local donors and community groups. Mathinza A is from Clean Yangon Group, which supports IDPs in Karenni and Chin states and the dry zone. They send dry foods and rice and sometimes distribute meals. But she says as time goes on, fewer people are able to donate to their group.
It's been almost 4 years since the coup, and donors are doing their best to help the IDPs meet their needs to provide comprehensive aid. We mostly see the same people helping people out. The other thing is, times are hard for everyone, so people can only donate if they're doing okay themselves. That means we don't have many new donors, just the same ones who are trying their best to keep supporting.
In this situation, revolutionary and medic Saya Chin says resistance forces need to do more to help meet the needs of displaced people in their areas.
I think it depends on the local authorities. It reflects the generosity they have towards the public. Some prioritize security, but it's tough on these people. This needs attention. Sure, there are other issues, but displaced people need more support. And we should care more for them. We need to ask what they need.
Bo Swan is commander of the 28th Battalion in Yinma Bin Township in Kayin region. There are around 200 IDPs in his area, but he says his battalion only gets support from the NUG once every 3 months, and they don't have enough resources to help IDPs regularly.
We prepare lunchboxes and cook for them when we can. I feel so sorry for the displaced people, and we really want to help more. But we're quite stretched ourselves, having to focus on our comrades on the front line, and those in training.
So as the number of internally displaced people grows, now over 3 million according to the UN, the sources of help are shrinking. There's not much hope for more or better food or for improved living conditions for people like Daw Moe. She and her family are only about 11 kilometers away from their village in Bago region. But for now, they're confined to their IDP hut by the camp toilets, not far from pig pens and chicken coops. It's not a pleasant environment. She just wants to go home so she can properly care for her elderly mother.
I just want to go back to our village. Life is cheaper there. There's plenty of food and we're close to the city, so I can easily get things for my mom. There are jobs there too, like vending or something else. Here, there's no work. I just want to go home.
Thanks for listening to this edition of Daw-a-thon. We'd welcome your feedback on social media, and please follow or subscribe to our pages. This project on human rights reporting is supported by Fondation Hirondelle with the help of our donors. You can listen to our podcasts via the Daw-a-thon Facebook page. They can also be found on SoundCloud, YouTube, iTunes, Spotify and Telegram. You can also listen every Saturday night from 9 to 10 p.m. and Sunday morning from 6 to 7 a.m. on Voice of America Radio. Please tune in again next week.